So welcome everybody. We have Adam here with us.
Hello everybody.
Hi Adam. So thanks for joining us. We are here. Adam is from Health Launchpad, and he is going to share his advice on how and why to use intent data when you're selling into healthcare organizations. So like I said, very conversational in the chat. Drop your questions. We'll answer them along the way if we can, or we'll answer them at the end. And of course, we always get a question. Are you recording this? Yes, we are. The recording will be available. So if you've got a piece out early, or if you need to share it with your team after the fact or anything like that, that recording will be available. So some quick speaker introductions. I'm Kate Athmer, VP of Growth at Bombora. Bombora is the leading provider of B2B intent data, specifically our company Surge intent data. And with me, I have Adam Turinas, CEO and founder at Health Launchpad. Health Launchpad is a firm that helps technology companies grow their healthcare business. So thanks for joining us, Adam.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about today.
Me too. Right to it. Here's the agenda. We're going to talk about intent data's role in ABM for selling to healthcare organizations, some best practices for using intent data within the platforms that you already have, and real examples of a couple healthcare technology businesses that are already doing this. So wanted to start with a quick level set. We're going to talk a lot about company Surge intent data today. If this is your first time encountering Bombora, you might not know what that is. So company Surge intent data tells you which businesses are researching the products and services that you and your competitors sell. And marketing and sales teams use this data to prioritize resources in order to generate more leads, more pipeline, more opportunities. The data has a couple of key components. So first, it tracks and understands the typical content consumption patterns of a business against intent topics related to B2B businesses, products, solutions, trends, pain points. Then it identifies when businesses are consuming more content than usual on certain topics. We call this a company surge. So said another way, a company surge indicates when a company may be in market for a particular B2B product or service, as well as their intensity of that interest. The company surge signal can be delivered to most directly to most systems of record through native integration. So for example, Salesforce, Marketo, HubSpot. And we also have over 35 channel partners that can seamlessly activate our data. Some examples of that would be Terminus, which we're going to touch on a bit later, Rollwork, 6 Sense, and a bunch more. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Adam to tell us more about how you and your clients use intent data.
Thank you so much, Kate. So my name is Adam Turinas. I am the CEO and founder of Health Launchpad. I founded this, it's not strictly a COVID business because I actually founded it the day before, just shortly before COVID started. So I began the whole thing very early in 2020. I'm a health tech sales and marketing guy. I spent 20 years of my life up till about 10 years ago in marketing, working with big digital agencies on global campaigns, all kinds of different industries. One area I didn't actually have any experience in was healthcare. So with no experience in healthcare, about 10 years ago, myself and a doctor started a health tech business, which became known as Unify Health, secure mobile communications. And we sold this platform to healthcare systems, so hospital-based systems around the country. And we were pretty successful with it. And in 2019, we sold the company to another big healthcare organization. So I then thought, well, what am I going to do next? And I sort of thought, my two passions are marketing and healthcare technology. So I started Health Launchpad with an idea that I could help other companies in healthcare deal with one of the toughest issues I've ever faced in marketing, which is how do you sell a market to healthcare organizations? It is a really, really difficult sector to market to. So a little bit about Health Launchpad, not a big commercial. We do three things kind of. One is we help healthcare technology companies get started with ABM and build out their ABM strategies. Second is that we help companies getting into healthcare, enter into the healthcare market. And we then do a whole bunch of different marketing programs, content, digital media, all of that great stuff to basically bring those two strategies to life. We work with some really great companies in the healthcare space. So Verimetrics, for example, is actually a cybersecurity company that I helped get into the healthcare market. Nuvolo, Bluestream, Mitonomy are healthcare technology, not even really startups because they've been going quite a while and are doing really well. And so these are kind of the types of companies, SaaS companies that I work with. Now, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about ABM and why it's so important in B2B and particularly so important in the health tech B2B space. And I'm going to try and bring this to life with a couple of use cases. One is a telehealth company that's using intent data, particularly to improve the productivity of their SDRs. And then the second one is I'm going to drill down on an enterprise software company in the health tech space that uses intent data in a really extensive way. ABM and therefore intent data could not be more important in the healthcare space. And the reason is that the sales cycles are eternal. So if you think about the typical customer journey, where they go online, they research, they interact with their friends in social media, they come back, they report, they share that information with other people that are part of the buyer collective. In a typical B2B sales cycle that might last 90 days, they might spend the last 30 days actually engaging with you. In healthcare, sales cycles are much, much longer. 9 months is not unusual, which means that actually if you take that kind of same journey in a 9-month period, you're lucky if they're spending maybe 60 to 90 days of that time with you. And this is where intent data comes in, because what I think is, intent data is almost like magic, is because it's giving you really great business intelligence about who's actually out there researching what you might be able to sell to them, and giving you signals that says these guys are actually a market for what you're interested in. So I've known about Bombora for a while and thought they're a really fascinating company, but until maybe over the last sort of 6 months or so ago, I hadn't really used it in anger. And I didn't really know, I was having lots of conversations with Bombora, but I didn't really know how it would actually be manifested in the work that I was doing with my clients. So I kind of want to share that with you, because I think if you haven't used intent data, it's a little bit of a mystery. And so I want to actually kind of give you some specific examples. Now, I'm going to give you two cases. In the first case, I'm actually going to show you where we're using Bombora natively. So we actually have a relationship through this particular telehealth client directly with Bombora, and we extract the data out of Bombora and we import it into HubSpot. So what you're seeing here is one of the sort of the main screens when you log in, and this is a report summary. So I've created a report for this customer that is the intent data for their tier 1 accounts. And it's just sort of, that's this kind of summary. And what that says is, hey, this week, because the data is updated every week, of your summary of I think we have about 3,000 tier 1 accounts, about 10% of them are actively interested. They are showing buying signals for what you do. And I'm just going to drill down a little bit. So this is actually how we analyze that. So what I do is I create, basically create a report through the Bombora tool. And this has several factors in it. So there's a whole process of figuring out which particular sectors you're interested in. But there are two key pieces of data here that are most interesting. The first thing is down here. So what I've done here is I've selected the 11 Bombora topics out of the thousands of topics that Bombora covers. I've picked the 11 topics that are most important to this particular telehealth client. So this includes WebRTC, the American Telehealth Association, and then telemedicine, virtual hospitals. And so that what that means is that the accounts that when the accounts that I'm interested in are out there researching, I can tell, I get signals on them. The other filter I've applied is I've uploaded my domain account. So actually I've only uploaded a partial account list, but basically I've uploaded a list of the accounts that I'm particularly interested in. So it's applying that filter. Then what happens is that every week, every Sunday night, I get an upload into our HubSpot instance that gives me data on those accounts that are in market. So we've created this tab in the company's part of Bombora, which shows me the companies that I'm tracking that have Bombora intent. So what you're seeing here is, for example, that Boulder Community Hospital, according to Bombora, has a very high interest. That number is actually based on several different, it's an algorithm based on several different variables. And people at Boulder Community Health seem to be interested in 5 of the 12 topics that I'm interested in. And you can kind of sort this lots of different ways. The reason this is important is that every Monday morning, when the sales development reps start their week, this is the first thing that they look at. Because what they're doing is that they're going from a long list of accounts to a much shorter list that appear to be in market this week. And I'll talk a little bit about what they say about the use of the data. Then when they sort of click into an individual account, this is the view that they're getting. So here's the account name, and then they can see the roll-up scores. So what this tells them is that Lee Health is interested in 8 of the topics, so they're really extensively researching. They've got a pretty high score, and these are the topics that they're looking at. The other thing is I've also integrated a little companion tool here called Lead Feeder. And what this actually does is allows me to see when people from that account are visiting our website, I actually get information about what parts of the website they're hitting. And then the final thing is that as long as I've got the contacts in there, this I'm not getting from Bombora, I'm getting this from other sources, those contacts are also displayed there. So as an SDR, I'm starting the week in a much more productive way. So what the SDRs tell me about this, is they've been using it for a couple of months now, is that they really love using it because they feel a lot more confident when they're starting their week off. But the other thing is that although it doesn't really help them get a response quicker, there's still a lot of work that they need to do to get anybody at Lee Health to pick up the phone or respond to an email. What they find is that when they get someone on the phone, that they tend to be much more engaged. They get a much more warmer feeling from them. So this is like giving them confidence that they are actually spending their time focused on much hotter prospects. So still fairly early days for them yet, but we're really confident that it's going to improve the productivity of the salespeople, of the SDRs. And in fact, to that end, we've shifted our marketing strategy to be much more focused on what we're doing to support the SDRs. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to talk about a much more extensive use of intent data and ABM. So this is a company called Nuvolo, and I'm actually they've allowed me to actually share a lot more detail about them. Nuvolo is a firm you probably haven't heard of, but they're a global SaaS firm that has a platform for enterprise asset management. So really what that means is that they help these major healthcare systems like Kaiser Permanente and the Mayo Clinic and Parkland Health manage all of the physical devices. So pumps and respirators and all things like that. And so basically they keep digital tabs on all of those. They have a great head of marketing, fantastic guy by the name of Ben Pearson. So Ben, VP of Marketing, and he's got a really great team underneath him, included a guy called Chris Rabel, who's their dedicated ABM guy. They've been using Terminus for, I think it's about 18 months now. And with, as you probably know, with Terminus, you get Bombora for 1 year, and they've gone up. It was a pretty steep learning curve for them. And once they got through the sort of first few months, they really, got moving with ABM. And they use ABM in 3 different ways. They use all 3 flavors of ABM. So they're doing one-to-one ABM, where every quarter, the sales and marketing team agree on the handful of accounts that they're going to do one-to-one marketing programs for. They do segment specific one-to-few marketing, where they're dealing in tens to hundreds of accounts. And what they're doing here, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, is they're targeting based on keyword interest. So this is where the Bombora data is particularly valuable. The other way that they use the Bombora data is, and this is they're targeting hundreds or thousands of accounts, is they create intent-based experiences to identify and engage in market prospects. They also use intent-based advertising to do competitive switching campaigns. So I haven't got a hell of a lot of time today, so I'm just going to I'm going to drill down on the data segmentation approach that they use. It's kind of interesting to know this is sort of how they segment their data and the role that intent data plays in it. Because as you know, with ABM, everything starts with targeting and the way that you do your segmentation. So the first filter is ServiceNow. ServiceNow is the platform that their platform works on top of. The second filter, excuse me, as they try to segment their industries, segment their market, is what industry they're in. So healthcare and life sciences are particularly important to them. And then they're segmenting based on sort of typical firmographics like size. But the more interesting variable is they look at the they have data on who are their competitors' customers, and then they use intent data as well. And they're covering 50 different topics to drive their strategy. And this really helps them develop multiple different campaigns. So one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, and competitive switching campaign. So let me give you a little sneak peek at one of those campaigns. So this is, I mentioned one-to-few. And so this is what they're doing here, is they're doing dynamic targeting based on intent. So they have a long list of named accounts. And what they're doing is they're tracking how those named accounts engage on certain keywords. So let's say they have a keyword cluster around facilities management, which is one of several sort of topic segments that they cover. When they see that one of those accounts at the beginning of the week happens to be actively engaged in facilities management, they automatically drop that account into a facilities campaign. So that then sets off a whole series of marketing sequences within HubSpot and other routines that the SDRs go after all of the named accounts that pop up within that segment that week. And so the other thing that they're doing is that they're then reaching those named accounts with intent-based display ads. Like, for example, they'll put a facilities ad in front of people within that account through LinkedIn, and I think they use similar tactics through a display network as well. And then what they're doing here is they're targeting based on department and job title. So here's some of the creative that you're using. That's a banner ad that would appear. And what they're doing is they're leading them into a customer segment specific landing page. This one's actually more for their financial sector, but they have similar ones for the healthcare sector as well. So if you kind of fit into that particular segment, you're dropped into a really highly engaging landing page. And in parallel with that, the SDRs are doing outreach through email and voice. Now, as I mentioned, the intent data is just as important to sales as it is to marketing. And the reason is that for the SDRs and for the salespeople, it's giving them real-time alerts about in-market opportunities. Like if I'm a sales guy, which one of my accounts seem to be signaling that they're in marketing? And it flags the most engaged opportunities and shows me who the warmer leads are. And this actually shows up in Salesforce for this particular company. So this is a pretty highly scrubbed screen that one of the SDRs might see in Salesforce. And what that's showing is a list of all of the key accounts that they're tracking. And there's these little chilies down the side. I think it's a Terminus thing, but it's actually using intent data to signal that this particular account seems to be actively interested and actively engaged. Again, like the previous example for the telehealth, this is where the SDRs are going to start their week. Drill down a little bit further, you kind of see an individual customer displays here. So this is a healthcare system client. And then for an individual, you can see all of the activity that's happened with them. And then what Bombora topics that particular organization is surging on. So, again, as an SDR, you're in a much better position when you start your week. Marketing also uses it in helping to optimize their campaigns and to set their strategies from a content standpoint. So, at the beginning of the year, they started to see that security was ranking much higher as a topic that their prospects were surging on. So sales and marketing actually sort of reoriented a lot of their tactics and actually developed a whole bunch of new content around security. And in fact, I'm just in the middle we've just launched a campaign around the security products, which was sort of, some of that was informed by that information. Last thing I want to leave you with on this particular client was something that their ABM guy told me, which is, he said one of the interesting dynamics was that it actually shifted the orientation of their salespeople from being proactive to being reactive, which when he said it, it sounded counterintuitive. And then, well, don't you mean it the other way around? I said, no. He said, you're always taught, right, that you don't want to be seen as a reactive person. You want to be seen as a proactive person. But the great thing about intent data is it actually allows you to kind of be much more reactive and react to real time, what's going on in the market real time. And frankly, that's a lot easier than being proactive. So I thought that was a particular insight. So I'm going to wrap up here. So key takeaways is that, in healthcare in particular, as we know, right, sales cycles are eternal. It takes, and you have, and you also have big deal sizes and lengthy contract terms. So it is even more important to be focusing on the right prospects. And that's where I think one of the greatest values of intent data is. And so, what I'm doing with my clients is helping them pair intent data with a lot of the other activities to accelerate what they're doing from an ABM standpoint. And then working with sales to help them focus on which customers, which prospects they should be giving the greatest attention and then reacting quickly to it. And then last but not least is that when you sort of step back and use the data in a much sort of more kind of global way and look at greater sets of intent clusters, you start to actually see trends in buyer behavior that actually can help affect your forward-looking marketing strategy. So intent data has value across the entire life cycle in marketing. So with that, I'm going to just take a break. If you want to get hold of Kate can be reached at kathmer@bombora.com, and I can be reached at adam@healthlaunchpad.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn as Adam Turinas. I'm the only one out there. So with that, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Adam. I think I'm the only Kate Athmer out there as well. There's a Katie,
Good.
but not a Kate. So very different. Um, but yeah, thank you. One of the insights that just jumped out to me at the very end there about that proactive versus reactive. The positioning there kind of makes it seem negative, but really intent data lets you listen to what the buyer is needing, what the buyer's asking for, what the signals the buyers are putting out there, and then you can give them the content, the information, the education that they need at that point in time, rather than just constantly throwing all sorts of education their way. So it totally makes sense, and it's really we try to focus on everyone's talking about like letting the buyers lead, adjusting your buyer journey to make it a better buying process for the buyer. So this is one way you can definitely do that, is paying attention to the signals and giving them the info they're looking for, and not bombarding them with a plethora of marketing knowledge. So
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's actually, you end up, it's the kind of less is more thing, right? You're focusing, and that's actually, I think the big trade-off that people struggle with ABM is you go from this sort of broad, sort of kind of mass approach, where you've got broad brush messages to lots of people, to suddenly be much narrower to a much narrower set of people, which is like, if you know you're focused on the right people, you can feel confident about it. If you don't know that you're focused on the right people, you could be placing a bet on the wrong set of horses. And that's why I think that sort of intent data is almost like an insurance policy in that regard. So I think there's a question there for you.
Yeah, definitely there is. And yeah, I mean, intent data, is, you also mentioned, it's a confidence booster. It gives you confidence that you're talking to the right people at the right time. Yeah, so one of the questions, we actually have a couple questions that came in. So the first one is there, well, the most recent one, not the first one, is there any way to see the surge data by job title in addition to the named account? So no, Bombora's company surge data is at the account level. That's for a number of different privacy reasons, and privacy compliance. So, and also intent data really works well when you're selling to an entire buying committee or an entire account. So account-based marketing really fares well with intent data. If you have a transactional one-to-one sort of sale, typically those are a lot smaller deals, faster sales cycles, and you don't necessarily need ABM. You probably don't actually need intent data then either. It's just, intent data really is a lot more valuable if you have these bigger deals, the longer sales cycles, and it's really important to meet people like at exactly the right time in the buying journey. So it's truly an account-based asset. And so yes, we do not provide it by job title, for strategic and privacy reasons.
Yeah, so what I've seen customers do is that, for example, in that first example where they've got Bombora data going straight into HubSpot, and you've got that view of an account, if that contact list is empty, I think they've actually got a connection out to one of the other sort of data companies that provide sort of individual data, and they're just literally just like saying, right, I want these titles for this particular account, and they just automatically populate it. It's pretty easy to get that set up.
Yeah, definitely. We have at least 3, but I think more contact data providers who are partners with us and have a direct integration. So it's, once you see that account is showing a company surge, you just say, okay, these are the titles I want at that business, add them to my database, and it's super straightforward. Sometimes it's even more automated than that. So depending on who you're using for contact provider, depends on how easy that is, but that is typically what people do. And then yeah, you're able to prospect that way. Another question that came in is, I think the question was about the chili pipers. So the question is that Bombora's intent data and Terminus or other intent data? So Terminus, and we are partners with Terminus. So our intent data helps power the little chili peppers that you see saying this is the hottest account and this is the medium hot accounts. So the integration we have with Terminus is actually really strong. I know Nuvolo is using Bombora's integration with Terminus to do some of their automatic campaign targeting for display possibly even for the landing page. So that's a pretty strong integration. You can learn more about that on our website as well, or ask Adam about it. Adam, question for you. How do you help the companies you work with decide which topics to select for their business?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, it kind of depends what you're selling. What I tend to do is I come up with the sort of like the list of the obvious and then a longer list. And so the list of the obvious are like, what are the key terms that are important to you? And that's sort of like the terms that you're using in your marketing. And in fact, there's a really neat little feature, which is if you put in your company's URL, so, let's say nuvolo.com, right? You put that in there, it'll go crawl over the website and make some suggestions. And they're usually like really good ones too. So that's like the first place to start. And that's sort of like that'll probably help you with your short list. Then what you want to do is, so that would be a cluster. So that would be kind of like, call it your primary cluster. Then you want to do some secondary clusters around maybe some other upper funnel topics that are relevant to you. So, in that telehealth example, it might be remote patient monitoring or, patient engagement or things like that are other topics. So I would say start with your core, like the top 10, maybe 15 topics that are absolutely as relevant as possible to what you do. And then create other clusters that are, part of your upper funnel marketing strategy.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I think this timing is so relevant because I think tomorrow we're actually releasing a video about topic selection onto our website. It's like in final editing review right now. I'm like messaging, can I get a sneak peek? But tomorrow on our resource center, you'll be able to find a video about the topic selection process, best practices, how to find the right ones for your business, and how to make clusters. Clusters can be related to product lines. They can be related to competitive conquesting, your products. I use a lot of clusters based off of pain points for top of funnel, very top of funnel awareness campaigns. So, that's just it really matters how you want to use it and what your focus is for using intent data, which use case for your business. But you can make infinite topic clusters to meet all of those different use cases. I have a question about the intent data captured from ads, media houses, or search engines. So actually, that's a great question. Bombora's data is not captured that way. So we have a data co-op with more than 4,000 publishers in it. And from that data co-op, they share information about the content on their websites. Our natural language processing actually reads that content and understands the context of it, translates that into topics, and then that's where the company surge data comes from. So it's all compliant, GDPR compliant, CCPA compliant, because it's all opted in data through this co-op. So we aren't scraping the bid stream like most other intent data providers are. Our co-op is, like I said, it's compliant, it's opt-in, and it's sustainable, and it's going to be around for a while. Probably a bit longer than some other practices that might not be using data in an approved way. I think this one's for you, Adam. Are you using any software to know about the people who are visiting your website? And what's your recommendation on reliable software there? And then I'll tell you that Bombora has that.
So this is great. Actually, this was a client. I had a client actually who said, we were getting several thousand, many thousands of unique visitors per month. The problem is we had no idea who they are, because guess what? People aren't filling out forms anymore. So you've got your HubSpot where somebody fills out a form, you can track every movement they do, but until they fill out a form, you can't, and they're not doing it. So we thought, well, okay, well, what can we get that's indicative? So this particular one, we installed a software called Lead Feeder, which was one that I found for them. It's very inexpensive. Now, what it does is it tracks accounts visiting a website, not individuals, accounts, and it uses static IP, which is not great, right? Because it means that, you know, it's not that reliable. It doesn't cover it. We think we're getting probably 10, maybe 20% on a good day of the accounts who are visiting the website. But 10 to 20%, you know, of, say it was 10,000, that's still, you know, that's still better than than nothing. And getting, you know, 500 to 1,000 bits of data is really, really quite helpful to us. But the problem is that so many people work from home that when you get when that IP address visits a website, you know, it says AT&T or, you know, whatever, whoever provides your internet service. So it's, you know, it's helpful, but not, it's definitely not the holy grail.
Yeah. Our recommendation is use as many sources as you can for that. So if you have Marketo, for example, it's baked into Marketo. You already get a little bit of that information. If you're using really any marketing automation platform where they have somebody has previously filled out a form, that's kind of the only way you can get it on the individual level is based on that cookie saying this person filled out the form and now they're back, kind of thing. But for the most part, yeah, a lot of that data is just available at the account level. You can get some of that through Bombora too. We have a product where you can add on to your company surge license and be able to see information about which accounts are visiting your website. And that uses the same IP to domain matching that we use for our company search data. We do the IP to domain. We also have, because of the co-op that we have access to, we're able to identify a number more accounts using that data. Because think, for example, if you go to read the Wall Street Journal and you log in with your business address, then they know, oh, okay, this is a person at this particular business because they've logged in, and they're able to give some of that data back to us to help with our identification too. So even without cookies, we can still identify a large majority of accounts that we are tracking for our customers. And another question in here. I did share a link about how the data is collected into the chat if anybody else was interested in reading that. And I think there was one more. Oh, back to Novolo, when you were showing that they had the different ABM tiers, I think the question is, does Novolo use intent data to decide which accounts go into which of those tiers? Or were the tiers kind of set and then intent data is just used within each of those ABM tiers?
I'm sorry, say again?
Did you I think the question is, do you use intent data to decide within the tiers for Novolo? Like, does intent data direct which accounts go into the tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 for the ABM? Or are those tiers kind of static and intent data just directs the action within them?
I don't really know I don't know the precise answer to the question. I think what they're doing is that they've got, you know, they've got a sort of constantly updated list of targeted accounts that are, you know, and then what they're doing is they're applying, they're creating segments of, they're creating clusters of segment specific data and then applying that as a filter. And I'm sure that they're updating that all the time, but to be honest, I don't know the specifics of how they're using it.
Got it. Well, that makes sense. How often do you update the company's IP addresses? I don't have a precise answer for that. It's an ongoing thing. So it would probably, that's one of those reactive things, I think, where it's like, oh, we found better data. We found more reliable data. We should refresh the company matching that's happening. But I don't know. As far as I know, there's not like a regular, we do this every day kind of thing. All right. I haven't seen any more questions come in a couple of minutes, so I think we're probably all set. Last call if anyone has really swift fingers, but again, you can reach out to Adam or myself if your questions didn't get answered, or just send an email to marketing@bombora.com and we'll get back to you. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Adam, so much for sharing this knowledge.
Pleasure.
It was wonderful, and hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of attendees still here, so it's good stuff. Good questions, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.